And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. And wouldn't an evening at the steakhouse be nice tonight? Mr. Randy Wanks, the sports desk in Culver City.
John, the public comment section at the LA City Council meetings is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, including this guy who wanted to talk about AIDS.
Aren't we supposed to be using rubbers to prevent AIDS? You know and I know why people don't use rubbers. What's that old saying? Using a rubber is like taking a shower with a raincoat on. And nobody wants to take a shower with the raincoat on. If I'm going to get then
you're off topic. Just either get back to the topic
AIDS.
or go to general public comment.
It's about AIDS and what spreads AIDS using without the rubber, which people don't like. So that's why you have the problem.
It's really amazing that we don't get our best and brightest in public service when that's what the meeting sounds like.
Sometimes you just hit play on a random spot in these meetings, and you hear the wildest things that you did not expect.
Well, it's too bad Janice Hahn wasn't there to keep him in line.
That's your final warning.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It's our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is the RNC National Committee woman representing the state of California. She's also the founder for the Center for American Liberty and the Dhillon Law Group. You can get her online at dhillonlaw.com and follow her on Twitter at PNJABAN. Harmeet Dhillon, welcome.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, John.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by. Let's start out with the big news here in the state of California, where Gavin Newsom, who is definitely not running for president, and he'll tell you every opportunity he has, is now on a great big international trip where he's going to Israel to let them know that the people of California stand behind them. And then after visiting Israel, he's going to go over to China before he comes back home to the state of California. I didn't know, Harmeet, that constitutionally states could have their own foreign policy, but just in case you're wondering, he's definitely not running for president.
Yeah, and Kathy Hochul, by the way, the governor of New York, is doing the same trip to Israel right now. So it is puzzling because it's not like any of these two states or other blue states have their own problems at home that a governor should be attending to, including in our city in San Francisco, you know, literally every other block having people dying on the streets, fentanyl and other drugs. You have, sort of people openly provoking, fights in the streets with Palestinian flags and, other stuff happening. It's kind of crazy right now in California, and it seems like there's a lot for him to take care of at home. But Governor Newsom clearly has his eyes on the next prize, as he has always had since his first elected office. It's always been one eye on the guy behind you to see what the next advantage is.
Well, and it's selfish, too, because it's dangerous over there right now. If he gets stuck over there and we have to move heaven and earth to get him home, then that's going to put other people's lives in danger. What he is doing is one step removed from Dennis Rodman going to North Korea.
Well, I agree. And, I was just having a conversation with somebody earlier today. We have a federal law about doing your own diplomacy if you're not a sort of federal official charged with that duty. And it's honored more in the breach than in the enforcement. So everybody's an amateur diplomat here, I guess.
One of the other moves that Gavin Newsom made recently was appointing LaFonza Butler, who is a lobbyist for Emily's List, which is a group that supports Democratic women who support abortion rights, to fill the term of Dianne Feinstein after she passed away. And he initially said it would be a black woman. Then he said it would only be a caretaker. Then he went back on that and said there'd be no strings attached. Okay, fine. He appoints LaFonza Butler, who at the time of her appointment didn't even live in the state of California. She lived in the state of Maryland. She's registered to vote in the state of Maryland. She was recently interviewed by the New York Times, where she told them that she will not run for a full 6-year term for the U.S. Senate because she feels like her skill set is better used in other areas. How insulting is it that Gavin Newsom not only went outside the state to appoint someone to fill out Dianne Feinstein's term, he appointed someone who doesn't even want the job?
Well, it's typical, actually. What's weird here, the typical part is most of California's top offices are held by people who got the job by appointment, because apparently Democrats are afraid of elections. So Alex Padilla, our United States Senator, got his job that way. Javier Becerra, before that, the Attorney General, got his job that way. They kind of pick winners and losers this way. But I guess the stakes are too high in this particular position because there are a lot of interest groups jockeying for that position. I do think it's insulting to even the African American women, if you accept that premise here in California, that you had to go. But how disrespectful is it to the voters of California? The woman, in addition to the factors you added there, has a child who goes to school in Maryland. I mean, that is about as big evidence as there can be that, you're not a credible California resident. So how can you represent California? So I just think it's really problematic, but it's something that I've become numb to as a voter here in California.
As a veteran of Bay Area politics, how angry do you think Barbara Lee is with all of this?
Barbara Lee is probably very pissed. She's been loyally carrying water for the far left wing of the party, which is the wing that controls the party now for most of her life. And she gets snubbed like this. It's pretty insulting for her.
In the city of San Francisco, they are schizophrenic with how they approach crime. Sometimes they're willing to acknowledge that crime is a massive problem. Other times they say that, it's the news media trying to scapegoat us and try to make us the poster child for left-wing policies that don't work. You're safe in San Francisco. You don't have to constantly be looking over your shoulder. The open-air drug use is not as bad as the news media says. Well, recently it was revealed that when they send people out to street vendors who are selling largely illegally obtained merchandise, a lot of the merchandise that was stolen through the smash and grabs and those sorts of things, that's now being sold on the streets in the Tenderloin, that there is a law that prohibits them from sending uniformed and armed police officers down there to shut it down. That when Jerry Brown was governor, he signed legislation that essentially doesn't allow the cops to enforce any laws for street vendors because he didn't want illegals to be harassed by the cops. Fine. So now you have a complete black market going on the streets of the Tenderloin, and there's nothing the cops can do about it. So in San Francisco, they're sending employees of the Department of Public Works down there to attempt to enforce the law, and now they're getting shot and they're getting stabbed. They have no training on how to deal with dangerous situations. They have no firearms on them. They have no weapons on them, and they're being sent down there like lambs to be slaughtered. And now the answer is from the city of San Francisco, let's buy them bulletproof vests before we send them down to the Tenderloin to enforce the city codes. How bonkers is it right now on the streets of San Francisco?
Well, you call it schizophrenic, but schizophrenic is an improvement over what it was, which was full-blown, celebration of criminals. So we now have a district attorney, who does not share my party preference, but she has definitely moved things in the right direction and is celebrating the prosecution of crimes on a daily basis. So that's a good thing. I think that interpretation of the law that you just described is questionable, and it could be challenged in court. That is not what Jerry Brown had in mind when he passed that law, which was like, let's not prosecute ice cream vendors. This is fencing of stolen goods. It's not street vending. That's BS, frankly. But, a simple solution would be let's have some cops standing nearby while these guys do their thing so that they can help. So nothing is simple. There's probably some union hang up there. The real problem in San Francisco right now is our police commission. Our police commission hates the police, which is kind of bizarre, and they don't want the laws enforced. So we need to really disempower the police commission in San Francisco, which interestingly, our liberal mayor is trying to do. So there are a lot of, I think in San Francisco, we probably have hit rock bottom with the sense that even the liberals are realizing that we have gone too far here. So I do have a little bit of hope.
And all of these subjects are interconnected. You're not going to be able to put a dent in the smash and grabs and the retail theft unless you take away their ability to sell those products. As long as they're able to sell those products, those stolen products, on the streets of the Tenderloin or wherever, they're going to continue to rob the stores, and then consumers who want to pay for their goods are going to have no place left to shop.
Yep, pretty much. For those of us who live in San Francisco, I think I would say this last couple of months, of like literally my office is above that Dior store that got the car rammed into it. And, we have homeless people setting up, and they're usually also on drugs outside our door starting at 6 o'clock at night. And, lawyers tend to work longer hours than that. So it's gotten the sort of David Dinkins, New York, Gotham City vibes to it. And, it's either just going to go into complete collapse at this point, or, some smart people are going to decide that it's too much. The average citizen has no say over any of this.
As a business owner, that's got to be difficult for you, because I'm sure you meet with clients in your office. You have employees who show up to work in your office. You yourself work in your office.
I work in the office every day.
If it's not a safe environment, that is massive liability for you as a business owner.
It's liability for me. I have to pay for, Ubers for people, they're working late. That's, shouldn't be. San Francisco used to be the safest big city in America, beautiful and all of that. And now they've just ruined it. Next year is going to be even worse for the business, for the real estate community, because a lot of leases are coming open for renewal. So we're going to have even more vacancy next year, which does accelerate the doom spiral unless city leaders make it attractive for businesses to relocate here. But anybody telling you that everything is okay in San Francisco is lying. And I say that as somebody who's had an office on my corner for something like 17 years now. It is the worst it's ever been. I never would have moved to San Francisco if I had anticipated it would be like this. And it just gets worse and worse.
There was a poll that was just released about the district attorney's race here in Los Angeles County. We, of course, have your former failed district attorney, George Gascon, as our district attorney. He's running for re-election as an incumbent, seeking another 4-year term. He is sitting, and I'm reading this correctly, Harmeet, at 14% in the polls. Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, we have reached the point where even Democrats, bleeding heart liberals, understand. Like when your designer doggy might die from, licking fentanyl or meth off of a foil on the street, when your, nice property, when you can't walk to yoga, then it's getting real.
He may not even make the runoff. If you're at 14%, it's a crowded field. We have, I think, 9 or 10 candidates. So maybe he will. Maybe 14% will be good enough to make the runoff. But if you're polling that low as the incumbent, you might get shut out of that November ballot.
Good. I hope so. That should be a big wake-up call all over the country. By the way, do your listeners know that George Gascon was once a Republican? He was literally like a conservative in city government in California, in San Francisco, until something happened. Some switch got flipped, and suddenly is the second worst after Chesa Boudin here in the state. But your city is much bigger. You're Los Angeles, and so that county has a lot more people in it, and it's a bigger impact on human misery than our small little boutique San Francisco County.
Do we know what happened to him? Do we know who broke him? Because I talked to people who worked with him at LAPD, and they said he was relatively normal at LAPD.
Right.
And then he got passed over for the job of chief here in Los Angeles, and he was really angry and really bitter about that. And he ended up in Mesa, Arizona before he showed up in San Francisco. Maybe it's just bitterness. Maybe he's just really angry that he didn't get a job that he thought he deserved. and he just decided from that point forward, I'm going to destroy the system.
Maybe, but, just electorally, at the time he got elected, you couldn't get elected or you couldn't get endorsed by the Democrats in the state without being a far-left progressive. That pendulum, at least for district attorney jobs, may be swinging. I mean, we have some pretty bad DAs in Alameda County, Contra Costa County, the urban counties up in Northern California. They're pretty bad. But you know how to change this stuff? Americans need to get out and vote. And they can't just say, oh, well, nothing will change. No, things can change. We recalled the worst school board members in San Francisco. We recalled the worst district attorney. And I think Los Angeles has had some shenanigans, frankly, with respect to the recall of Gascon. There was incompetence and shenanigans in that. But ultimately, if you can replace him, that's going to send a chill down the spine of George Soros and his henchmen nationwide.
How dangerous do you think he will be if he loses in the primary, doesn't make it to the general election ballot, and has close to 3/4 of a year to inflict as much damage on the people of L.A. County as possible?
I don't know. How could it get worse than it is right now? I'm not sure.
That's a good point. He's malicious when he has to face the voters. God knows how he'd act if he doesn't.
Well, I think the guys, they all have an end game. Head of some foundation, blah, blah, blah. So, he's not old enough to retire yet. So hopefully he can hold his stuff together until he gets his next job.
If he wins re-election, I think he wants to become Attorney General of the state.
No, it's, possible, given how crazy the state is.
Harmeet Dhillon, founder of the Center for American Liberty and the Dhillon Law Group. You can get her online at dhillonlaw.com and follow her on Twitter at PNJABAN. Harmeet Dhillon, thanks so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful weekend.
Always. Thanks for having me, too.
Randy, I can't even remember the last time I rode Metro. And you know why that is?
Why is that?
Because I need to get on one of those trains like I need a knife to the head.
You may want to consider not using the Metro.
And a lot of people are avoiding the Metro because we know about all the problems. We know about the crime. We know about the shootings. We know about the stabbings. We know about the fingers being eaten. We know about all of the dysfunction that goes on those trains daily. So now Metro is trying to combat their negative associations by saying it's never been safer to ride the Metro.
They say crime is down and ridership is up. It's never been a better time to get on the red line.
And they felt like they could go on television and say this with a straight face.
Let's hear what this report from KCAL has to say.
Safety concerns have kept many people from taking public transportation, but Metro tackled the issue and ridership increased last month compared to the same time last year. Now, Metro worked with police and ambassadors to help make it safer for
God.
Can't believe Pat Harvey was able to say that with a straight face.
I'm surprised.
KCAL News reporter Nicole Comstock live in downtown L.A. She spoke with some riders to see if they noticed the difference. Nicole.
That's right. There's a perception for many people that it can be unsafe to ride. But Metro says...
Well, it's more than a perception.
They say that perception is reality. Sometimes that's literally true.
That's right. There's a perception for many people that it can be unsafe to ride. But Metro says the reality is that crime has gone down significantly since it refocuses efforts on safety. We've covered violent crime on the Metro quite a lot.
Children are doing it.
For over a year, crime spiked, stabbings, shootings, drug use by the homeless. Ridership fell dramatically, with people fearing for their safety. But Metro says now it's turned things around. Metro says ridership is up 10% from last September because crime is down 53% in the last 6 months.
Is that because of arrests? Is that because of crimes reported? I would like to get a little more specifics on those numbers before I buy them.
It seems like every week or so, we have a different rap that we play about some unspeakable crime that happens on the Metro. Have you noticed a dip in stories about crazy crimes happening on the Metro?
I haven't heard anything like a cop getting his finger bitten off or somebody getting stabbed or a bus driver getting attacked in the last few weeks. So there is definitely a possibility. We haven't had a Metro story in the most recent memory.
But if it happened a month ago, that's not ancient history.
Because crime is down 53% in the last 6 months.
We've tried to find other ways to deter those crimes that are happening.
Spokesperson Patrick Chandler says Metro focused more resources on safety, having police partner with Metro ambassadors.
Back to the ambassadors.
You could have just said, we have police. You don't need to put the ambassadors in there.
Having police partner with Metro ambassadors who observe and report any hazards.
We are working with law enforcement to be more visible on our system so that if an incident does occur, they're there to respond.
Back in April, writers told us they witness violent encounters on the Metro often.
I definitely see fights like almost on the daily.
I watched someone get shot on the train.
Jesus.
Okay, those aren't what you would call happy customers.
So we asked writers if they noticed a big difference now.
I actually can tell a marked difference.
Zoma Pereira says the system used to feel much less safe, but she wrote it anyway.
No, I guess.
Okay. Now we know all about her judgment.
No, I guess because I grew up in L.A. I don't know.
Troy Farrow says he doesn't know if he would want a kid to write on it alone, but it was fine for him.
Yet another ringing endorsement.
It's actually been very easy today. We rode the Amtrak this morning, and then we did the Metro around town, the center of town, and it was a really nice experience for us.
We are going to Universal Hollywood Horror Nights.
Joseph Masato.
That guy's high.
High or drunk?
Oh, I think you get high before you go into Universal, and then because Universal serves alcohol, you can get drunk while you're high there.
Okay.
We are going to Universal Hollywood Horror Nights.
But anyone who's an adult that goes to Halloween night at Universal, they're loaded.
He sounds it.
Joseph Masato says he hasn't had any scary encounters on the Metro, and he...
You know, it was that Universal City platform where I witnessed 10 years ago 2 people beating the crap out of each other, and there was nothing anyone could do about it.
Did you video it with your phone?
No, I did not.
I
ran for daylight.
Joseph Masato says he hasn't had any scary encounters on the Metro, and he uses it often.
Well, I personally live in the Crenshaw area, so I'll take the Santa Monica Metro down here.
And Metro also attributes some of that increase in ridership to students during back-to-school season.
So it's not necessarily that ridership is up because crime is down, like Metro said.
Yes, it's because school started back up in September.
And they're giving all the students free Metro passes.
Well, and they don't kick you off if you don't pay, so what's the point?
It's also reconfigured a few of its lines. Reporting live in downtown L.A., I'm Nicole Comstock, KCAL News.
So Metro says they're safer than ever.
So here's the problem with that. There will be people out there who believe this, because there are people out there who believe everything they see on the news. And they're going to ride these trains and these buses and these subways because they were told it was safe. And oh boy, are they in for a surprise. The problem is, for those of us who know what's going on, it's not like you get a satisfying "I told you so" after they get stabbed. It's just a, I wish you would have listened.
You may want to consider not using the Metro.
Words of wisdom right there. Well, we've told you that the 911 system in the city of Oakland keeps failing, but as it turns out, Randy, that's not the only phone system in Oakland that fails on a regular basis.
That's right. A woman desperately trying to call 911 as she was in the middle of a gang shootout, realized she couldn't get through, tried to call the non-emergency line. She also couldn't get through on that. It is truly terrifying, but don't you worry, Oakland resident. Sheng Tao feels your pain.
You may be frightened, and I know how you feel.
Well, if she's on the case, what could go wrong?
For more, here's a report from NBC Bay Area.
Well, a lot of problems with 911 calls. This is a nightmare situation. A mother in Oakland says she got caught between two strange cars when both drivers of those cars pulled out guns aiming to shoot.
She tells
Which is just a Tuesday afternoon in Oakland.
Just any old normal day.
She tells investigative reporter Candace Wynn that she called 911, but her calls dropped.
This problem of busy and dropped 911 calls is still happening in Oakland. We're now looking deeper at Oakland's non-emergency calling system. It's supposed to help alleviate pressure on 911 dispatchers, but Keisha Henderson says it left her hanging on the line, too.
I have twin daughters. Picking them up from school, they were in the car with me.
On September 21st, Keisha Henderson was driving near Foothill Boulevard and 50th Avenue in Oakland.
And when I looked in my rearview mirror, there was two speeding cars. They ended up boxing me in. Literally, the car behind me pulled out his gun and aimed it at the car in front of me.
Jesus Christ.
If only there was a magic wand that could prevent all of the gunfire in Oakland.
Not a day goes by where I don't wish I could just wave a magic wand and silence the gunfire.
She's a gem.
And you're in the middle
I'm in the middle. That's when I, called 911. I couldn't get through. It's a busy signal, and it just hangs you up.
That's the last thing you want to hear while you're in between two gang members pointing guns at each other.
She couldn't even get far enough in the 911 system to press 1 for English.
With her 8-year-old daughters in the back seat, Henderson also worried about other children in the area. School had just gotten out, and Fremont High School was around the corner. So Henderson called.
Maybe these gang members could have been polite and done what the gang members did last month and have their shootout on the football field.
Well, what if there was a team practicing?
Well, they've moved out of town. The Oakland Youth Football Program no longer practices in Oakland. And the basketball court, well, you know what happened there.
Oh, my God, they melted the basketball court.
Called Oakland's non-emergency number.
Yeah.
She says she was just trying to get a hold of someone. Her phone records show she called 4 times.
I was blocked out 4 times from even the non-emergency line.
This same log shows Henderson called the non-emergency line the day before when she says a neighbor said someone in a ski mask was in a car in front of her house.
Jesus.
At what point do you move?
I was on hold for like an hour and like 30-something seconds or something like that, yeah.
Did you just say an hour and a half?
It's an hour and a half.
Oh,
90 minutes to get someone to answer the phone when you're threatened that there's a guy in a ski mask in front of your house?
That doesn't seem right.
Oakland's non-emergency calls are handled by the same department that takes 911 calls.
Well, that explains it.
If it's going to the same place, why have a different number?
Because it's Oakland.
Our investigative unit has been reporting on Oakland's failing 911 system since the summer.
There's a 911 calling crisis.
Weeks after we revealed Oakland.
Did they just give themselves a shout out in their own piece that aired on this station?
If you don't pat your own self on the back, who will?
After we revealed Oakland had the second worst answering time in California, the state sent the city.
Wait, who's worse than Oakland?
Oh, we've got to look that one up.
The state sent the city this letter. It put Oakland on notice, saying it has 12 months to bring 911 answer times into compliance, or it will initiate termination of Oakland's 911 center, and OPD will no longer receive state 911 funding.
Systems don't change overnight.
Oh, there's our girl.
Oh, making excuses. That's different.
Systems don't change overnight.
Last month, Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao announced the city is investing $2.5 million into its 911 system. This week, she spoke.
I'm going to guess it hasn't been spent yet.
No, of course not.
This week, she spoke about the issue at her State of the City address.
In the next year, 911 response times will improve significantly.
Notice how she didn't say 911.
No. If you give out the number correctly, then people will just call it.
And we will not stop making progress until we fully fix 911.
Oakland did not respond to our questions for this story, but in its reply to the state's notice, the city said it's recruiting more dispatchers and streamlining hiring. It asked the state for potentially more money, saying artificial intelligence paid for by the state might help with answering non-emergency calls.
Wait, what?
More money will fix the problem, Randy.
They're going to have the same nonsensical AI voice that when you call a bank can't get you to a human deal with 911 and 311 in Oakland?
They're just leaving them for dead.
Please tell me what your request is. If it's shooting, say shooting. If it's robbery, say robbery. I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Did you say shooting?
And if you think this AI works well, call AAA.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
There's just a lack of enforcement.
Police say they're investigating the near shootout Henderson was caught in. Rather than only focusing on crime in Oakland, Henderson is trying to be part of the solution.
Yeah, I would just leave.
She's reporting crime and she can't get a hold of anyone.
You may be frightened, and I know how you feel.
You're not part of the solution at that point. You're part of the collateral damage. All right. Well, best of luck, Keisha. I don't know. If I had a couple of 8-year-olds, I'd think about getting out of town. But that's just me. We've got one more hour coming up on the John Phillips Show right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
Hey, Shane Todd, do those kids fear for their lives?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.